Hi, welcome to my presentation on 5 essentials of effective M-learning. In this presentation, we will discuss different aspects of learning through mobile and handheld devices. Today, we have a wide spectrum of mobile and handheld devices at our disposal. In fact, it's almost impossible to imagine our lives without the gadgets that have become synonymous with instant communication, information, and entertainment. Look at the impressive range of gadgets: mobile phones, smartphones, tablets, MP3 players, game consoles, and others. They are extremely helpful in communicating, searching, and finding information while on the move. What's more, we can also create content like text, pictures, audio, and video and share it instantly. Isn't it exciting to be using these devices for learning and knowledge sharing? M-learning is a natural extension of e-learning. It links mobility and portability with learning opportunities. This image presents the changing nature of learning in a connected age. Here you can see how M-learning can be used for different learning and information sharing goals. For instance, we can make use of annoying waiting time while travel for learning some basic skills or revise something that was taught in the classroom. Unlike accessing learning content from desktop and laptop computers, mobile content is available whenever we are connected to the internet from our mobile phones. Even without being connected to the internet, we can use mobile apps that are designed for learning. Now the question is, will M-learning replace desktop e-learning? Will it blend well with conventional learning in the classroom? Will it complement other forms of technology-based learning? As we can learn from the evolution of technology-based learning, M-learning will not replace other forms of learning. It may complement, enhance, and extend the classroom and e-learning. For making it an efficient medium of learning, we need to consider some crucial aspects of design, development, and delivery with regard to content and technology. Let's look into the 5 essentials that make M-learning effective. These include rethinking learning. In other words, how learning is conceptualized and perceived today. Purpose of learning. We can get to know the purpose of learning by asking some basic questions like why does someone learn? What is the content? Who is the learner? How learning content is being accessed, and so on. Responsive design. This tells us how we should interpret design as flexible and fluid to suit different delivery devices. Understanding technology. Here we try to study the type of network connectivity and other technical specifications for designing and delivering the content. Prototype testing and evaluation. Why is it essential to build a prototype and test it with actual learners and seek their feedback? Technology is rapidly changing our perceptions of learning. We don't need to wait for a formal lecture to know about a topic. We can easily find the content on the internet, we can ask experts, share our learning with friends. In this way, formal and informal ways of learning are getting integrated to provide a richer learning experience. With mobile devices, lifelong learning has become even more contextual and convenient. Now let's look at the attributes of M-learning and what implications it has for content development. The changing perceptions of learning in the context of M-learning have brought in new expectations for learning designers and developers. To match different attributes of mobile devices, we should take special care to make the content versatile, easily accessible, adaptable, interactive, and so on. This is needed because the mobile devices come in different sizes, shapes, and specifications, unlike the standard desktop and laptop computers. Also, the learning goals may get reformulated for this medium since it has its own limitations. Now let's move on to the next point, the purpose of learning. The purpose of learning, as mentioned earlier, involves asking basic questions. Normally these questions begin with 5 W's and 1 H. These questions form the basis of analysis for any learning program. They hold good for M-learning design as well. The responses to questions under 5 W's and 1 H can bring in clarity and consistency to different types of learning modules. Okay, to illustrate whatever was said earlier, here's an example. Let us look at these questions in the context of academic learning. Use of M-learning in an academic setup may not be a favorable proposition since mobile devices can distract the learners in the classroom and become the main reason for any other deviance. However, constructive use of M-learning can have positive results on learning retention, repeated listening and viewing of lectures, handy reference, and scope for latest updates and social sharing of content. This is an example pertaining to the training scenario. Now let's assume we conduct analysis using the basic questions listed earlier in the context of corporate training, skill development, and vocational training. The responses will provide us valuable information on what is the purpose of M-learning, how it can help in improving performance or making decisions by applying the information they acquire in the training sessions. In fact, for the mobile workforce, it can be of great help in accessing the relevant information or learning module while they need it the most. The next essential point has to do with responsive design. The ever-changing landscape of different mobile devices, browsers, and screen sizes require creation of flexible and adaptive learning experience. What is created for a desktop screen cannot be expected to display perfectly on a smaller screen. For this purpose, we need to work on fluid layout to make our design responsive to different devices. Different elements of instructional design, visual communication design, and technology specifications come together to provide an enjoyable M-learning experience. Typical instructional design principles and inputs from visual communication design and user experience studies have to be adapted to the specific requirements of mobile devices, such as structuring the content into micro modules, simple navigation, thoughtful use of graphics, audio, and video. Since reading long passages is difficult, we should provide textual content in smaller chunks, preferably in linear manner. Where audio can replace cumbersome reading, it can be provided in downloadable formats. Video and animation too have to be used judiciously. However, consider the case of ordinary mobile phones that don't have smart features. What if a significant number of learners are using such phones? What are the operating systems? What type of content they support? What if they don't have a touch phone? And we design the content keeping in mind the advantages of touch technology. Such discrepancies can be avoided if we take into consideration responsive design approaches. Now let's look at an example that involves the study of the context, the content, and the learners. In this case, we would be designing a solution that caters to the typical learning needs of the service engineers and mechanics. From our analysis, we will know what type of mobile devices are used by them and how they prefer to use the learning modules. Perhaps their learning needs are best answered by developing videos and animations that demonstrate how the electronic gadgets work. These videos can be accessed from the internet provided they have good network connectivity, or they can be loaded on the mobile phones as applications. The next important point is to understand technology. The mobile technology scenario is truly dynamic. It is evolving rapidly and things get outdated within no time. It's a big challenge to understand, predict, and design for consistent learning experience, especially when aesthetics, functionality, and usability have to seamlessly merge in what we design and where the learning content can be accessed from. It could be from mobile apps or web apps, an M-learning portal or an LMS, or from social network shares or random browsing through URLs. Another aspect of technology is the type of network and operating systems used by the learners. Are they on GPRS? How many of them have 3G connection? Are they on Wi-Fi in their workplace or in their universities? Imagine the range of bandwidth issues that are likely to come up. What is the operating system? Is it Android, iPhone, Windows, or Symbian? It is indeed a different type of challenge to address these issues and come up with design that suits the nature of content and the delivery platform in an efficient manner. The last important point pertains to prototype testing and evaluation. Like any other learning content development process, the M-learning process too should include prototype testing and evaluation. This should be taken up early on so that we can have learner feedback and we can test how M-learning solutions perform on different devices. It would help in benchmarking what could be the best practices since the standards for M-learning are still evolving. Now let's take a quick recap of what we discussed in this presentation. We started by understanding the concept of M-learning and the scope it has for enabling different types of learning experiences. Then we moved on to understand the significance of learner or user study. We also looked at the role played by content, context, and technology analysis in developing effective mobile solutions. We spent some time looking at the idea of responsive design and how it can bring in sound learning experiences. We close this presentation with the importance of prototype testing and evaluation. Here are some references for additional reading. For more information, you can visit my website for latest updates. Thanks for viewing my presentation.